What's up, everybody? Nick Powills, your host for the ultimate guide to selling franchises. Now, there's going to be different audiences that will watch this. If you like any of our videos, go ahead and click subscribe so that you can be informed of future videos that are coming up. But in this video, we're going to focus on the selling of the franchise and the audiences that I would say, and oversimplify this. You have the emerging brands, so call that 25 units and below. So that's startup to 25, and emerging to established 25 units over. And the reason I use 25 is that tends to change the capital position of the franchisor. That royalty is coming in. Hopefully there's some corporate units that are kicking off some capital that can be reinvested back into the franchise. And so it creates a different pathway for how you're going to ultimately sell the franchise that you want to sell. I want to put some things in context before I go through what is in the Ultimate Guide. To find the Ultimate Guide, if you're watching this video, wherever you're watching it, if you Google Ultimate Guide to Selling Franchises, 1851 franchise, you'll find all the content that lives on our website, which is designed to educate you and give you the tools to win at franchising. Okay, so the context. Here are some of the challenges that exist that I've seen over the last 20 years of being in franchising. One is false expectations. I joke when a brand says, I want 25 deals next year. And I say, well, I would like a yacht in Miami and not working anymore. There's some things that we wish for that are not going to come true quite yet. And so part of what you have to do as a franchisor is you have to look at your own data and goal set based on that. You don't have to if you want to. It's your expectations are going to want to do that. So it starts with what can you do and what is responsible growth for your organization. I will say for an emerging brand, the miss ends up being infrastructure. It's not necessarily about selling or awarding franchises. It's about how can you build infrastructure to support them. For every type of franchisor, they tend to miss the key data point, which is deal value. If you've watched any of my coffee and analytics videos, I speak often about this, but deal value, if you really attach a deal value back to what this could be worth to your organization, I take 3 years of royalty, forget about the franchise fee, use that as cost of acquisition. 3 times royalty, whether that's $15,000 or $150,000, can be a lot of money. And typically franchisors, when they're looking at how am I going to budget for growth, they don't take a responsible amount of that to go get a good return on investment, which is fascinating because if we hire, a wealth manager, 5 to 10% growth of our wealth, we're pretty excited for. So at that rate, at $100,000 to get $100,000 off of 90, you're actually pretty happy, or off of 70, if you're taking 10 a year, you're actually pretty happy. But how many brands actually say we're going to spend $70,000 per deal on user acquisition? Very, very few. So at the front end, expectations and capital end up being the most two critical pieces. But underneath that layer comes to how are we going to support franchisees and how are we going to help them grow? And so it's a complex matrix that when you're qualifying candidates, you have to give them the support or the infrastructure, because I've said this line many times, if you and I go back to the day before we are in franchising and say, explain it, we can't do it. Yet every franchisor, when you get to the franchise website, it says, buy my franchise. Now, for someone that's in franchising, sure, that makes sense. But the vast majority of franchise buyers that land on your website are going to be infants to franchising and not understand all the complexities to it, which is why they get spooked and go back around the web to try to figure out what is going to make them feel comfortable with the deal. And so I'm setting the tone here. I'm creating some of this mixture here. Again, if you like these videos, please click subscribe below so that you can see more of them. And like I said, go and Google 1851 franchise, the Ultimate Guide to Selling Franchises, or vice versa, to find more content on this. So now we've established just some knowns, expectations, capital, supporting franchisees with what is franchising, making sure the sales process is pretty tight. In my opinion, call one ends up being the most critical element of the sales process. Once someone has filled out a form, can you make them feel comfortable and confident that this is the right brand that they should be looking at? It ends up setting the tone for what happens next. Okay, so we have these baselines. Now it comes to what are we going to do to sell franchise? And so I'm going to read through some of the elements here. I'll give some commentary on this. These are all things that are in the Ultimate Guide to Selling Franchises. And understand, like, there's a lot of complexities to this. I think the franchise consultants that help franchise businesses could have a little bit more responsibility on setting the expectation that it is going to be hard to sell franchises. You're trying to convince someone to invest their life savings into a business they have little to no control over. That's a pretty complex thing. And so when I start mapping this out of what will it take, this will start giving you your own scorecard, checklist, say, how are we doing in these categories, which ultimately will give you a score. And with that score, you start seeing where do you stand in all of these. So number one is clarifying the position, the why you, why now. Why you, why now is very simple from a statement. Why you? Why would anyone want to buy your brand? And why would they want to buy it now? The why you should showcase a point of differentiation, particularly against competition. And the why now should create some FOMO, some supply and demand to say, look, if we sell out this market, you're not going to have the ability to buy into it. Now, I said I'm going to add all these elements into this. My viewpoint on the selling or the awarding after you have the why you, why now is that the multi-unit agreement is risky, especially for brands south of 100 units. And here's why. Openings and signings, franchisees, are the pathway of least resistance to getting another franchise buyer to want to buy in. And so with that being said, if you sell out a market or give too much territory away, then when that next candidate comes in and says, hey, I'm interested in buying, you're going to have to say, I'm sorry, that's unavailable. And most candidates want to buy in the markets that they live in or work in. And so you're going to lose the opportunity to build or compound your franchisees in a marketplace, which any of you in franchise development knows that more franchise units in a marketplace, the higher the AUVs go up. The higher the AUVs go up, the easier it becomes to sell. So clarify that message, the why you, why now. Now you get into the culture and the business model. Why is it important to understand what your culture is and your business model? It's because franchise buyers, after they buy, and we've asked them, we say, what are the reasons that push you over the edge to make you say yes? It's that culture and business model, nothing else. So culture, what does that mean for you? It tends to be the leadership team that's going to support the franchisee, and the business model ends up being the product, the vision, the cost to get in, how much I can make, where you're growing, and your franchisees that have already validated this business model. And so on your website, if you go there right now, open it up, and you say, does it say why you, why now? No. Well, now we have a to-do. Now we have a to-do that we need to adjust that. Does your website talk about culture, and does it establish what the business model is? No. Then that's a to-do list item for redoing that. Next, how to position your value proposition, the point of differentiation. You have to have a clear point of differentiation. It doesn't matter what category you're in, because especially in today's world, and point of differentiation can be on the business model or it can be on culture. But in today's world, there's a lot of competition, and most franchisors are all going after the same person, someone who is qualified and ready to buy, and trying to convince them why their brand makes sense. If you go to a franchise expo, you can see a plethora of brands that exist at that expo that are all trying to get that one little guy that's walking the floor to say, I'm interested in buying that brand. And so you want to make sure you have a clear point of differentiation. Now, typically that swings a little bit more on the consumer side, but you're going to want that in your sales toolkit to win at selling franchises. How to benchmark your investment versus competition. I would benchmark and look at all categories. ChatGPT is a fantastic tool for doing so. You can ask ChatGPT to benchmark you against all of your competition based on the cost to get in, published item 19, units, states available, all these different charts. ChatGPT is a great tool for this. That's how you can start using AI to give you a benchmark against it. How to build a marketable item 19. I'm cautious on this. I'll give an example. If a brand has too high of an AUV and doesn't break it back through or break down by years in business and states, then the flip side of a marketable item 19 is that you could oversell based on a limited coupling of performance that doesn't set the expectations right. You got to think about what will be the turbulent points for a franchise buyer. They signing to opening is going to be turbulent because they have cash leaving their bank account and no cash coming in. When they get open to average unit volume is going to be that next run. And so the faster that you can make that happen, or the faster that you can help that franchisee to get to break even, the better they're going to be and the happier they're going to be, because it's going to align closer to the item 19. So as much as I say you need to have a marketable item 19 so that it tells a great story, it has to also tell the right story, because if validation starts shifting, then you're going to have challenges. Successful PR, I call this the drumbeat. Getting the media to validate that you are a good business should be a part of your toolkit. This is a part of selling franchises. If I were to go back 15 years ago, I said it was more impactful on direct last click. Someone would say, "Ooh, I saw you in Entrepreneur Magazine and I decided to buy." Yes, that happens in micro situations, but because the buyer is spending a little bit more time doing their research, they're becoming a little bit more educated before they click the form on your website. Now it sets up a different type of excitement. So it's more like building on the emotional connection than anything, and establishing that you are indeed a credible brand. When it comes to that drumbeat, we've done research and have found that the most impactful use of PR is when it's done weekly. Some brands can afford that. It goes back to my original statement of how much capital do you have to deploy it, but inch that process and inch your drumbeat as close to weekly press as possible. That's going to help set up where the business will go. Build the right content strategy. You have positive news, you have counter content, and you have research content. And I'm oversimplifying that, but each of those should have some sort of drumbeat. Again, the weekly ends up being the pathway that will help get you to the maximized, call it the franchise snowball effect, where the drumbeat is being built. And so you might go franchisee profile, signing/opening, milestone look back, answer the reasons why someone would not buy. Look at your funnel, top of the funnel. Middle of the funnel is really where the inquiry comes in. Deal is at the bottom. Make sure each level has some sort of drumbeat of content. It'll create a strategy. I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of this, of understanding the deal value. Deal value is very important to smart business when it comes to franchising. I've had brands that say we'll spend $100,000 per deal to get them done, as long as they are the right people, and the right people end up being someone that could qualify to own 3 of them. So a little bit more financially sound, but they're willing to spend more on that drumbeat, because even if they spend 100, in 3 years from now, that return on investment ends up being quite incredible for the franchisor. And private equity funds will pay on futures. And so if you qualified in the right franchisee who's gone from 1 to 3 units, now the value of that franchisee has 3x'd. Now, when you go to sell, that's going to be indicated in the futures of the business. So it's actually going to affect you positively. If I'm in franchise sales, I encourage you to have this discussion with your leadership team and talk about the deal value. And so it might change the way that you're looking at how you invest into franchise lead generation to make sure that you are well capitalized. Drip campaigns and lead nurturing. Lead comes into your site. Do you have a campaign set up? Email one, in my opinion, is quite easy. It says, hey, thank you for inquiring. When can we schedule a time to talk? Not overly salesy. You can see in today's communication world, more people are texting and emailing than they are accepting phone calls. So it used to be the race to the dial. I don't know that that's necessary anymore. I've been qualifying leads. Here's a part of Growth Club. Me personally, have been doing it. I'm getting people on the phone, no problem. I'm letting them be someone that I want to talk to. And I'm thinking about deal value back to the brands that we represent to make sure that we're trying to get in the right people that will have effect. But understand the deal value, go through that exercise again. I'm just saying 3 years of royalty. It's a good exercise to go through. You can look at the total deal value. But if you look at three years royalty and you look at a multiple, if you get the right person in and they continue to scale at the right pace, how do you incentivize them to scale? That could win. On that front, this is not into the guide to selling franchises, but if you've watched it to this video to this point, I will also say champion resales. I think resales are one of the most beautiful things that happen to a franchisor because it protected the investment of the exiting franchisee. In some cases, it made them a really good return on their investment. It is protecting royalty, so it actually protects cash flow. And it's immediate cash flow because on a resale, it's continuing the royalty stream, and you don't start over from scratch. If a build out takes 9 months or 2 years, it's not scratch. So I actually love the resale as a part of understanding the deal value. It shows the value of brand. It can be deeply valuable if you put it through your marketing funnel. Don't discount it if you're on the leadership team. Your sales team getting a resale actually impacts your bottom line in a much larger way. How to build the conversion-focused Fran Dev website. 2 easy things. Do you have a form at the top of the site? Are you giving the buyer 2 paths? I'm oversimplifying this, to schedule a call now or to just download a informational guide. Give them 2 paths. Don't make it required that they have to get on the phone with you. This is sometimes where the perception that the candidate is dead comes into play, which is not real. So make sure that that's there. And then in the upper corner, just make like you have so many brands have these terms like get started. No, just schedule a call so that you're actually setting the expectation. And all I'm talking about is expectation setting really on all these categories. Set up your digital marketing. In today's world, you have Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are the primaries. Some brands are using YouTube. Some are using Bing. Total other discussion on those. Some are using TikTok. Those are all good. That gets the click into your website. I think retargeting ends up being the most important part of that because 99% of franchise buyers aren't going to buy on first click. They're going to go around the web and get comfortable with things. So when you can put retargeting back in place, you're basically reminding them that they were here. Where I see retargeting ads fail is it says, hey, you came to Nick's Hot Dogs, went around the web. It says, hey, don't forget about Nick's Hot Dogs. No, give them the next step in the progress and say, hey, download this white paper. Hey, we are actively talking to franchisees in your market. Don't lose out on the opportunity to have a conversation or schedule a free coaching call. That's a term that the franchise brokers have used really well that I think you can put into play in your sales process, and it can make a huge, huge difference. How to manage your social media drumbeat. More than anything today, it's a LinkedIn jealousy thing. So signings, openings, drumbeat content on LinkedIn makes sense. I would have a franchise page on your LinkedIn page. Doesn't hurt. You can put your content on that page. That creates, again, a drumbeat. And now some of these things, like when you think about creating a piece of content, if you create a piece of content, you go do PR around it, you put it on your LinkedIn, you buy an ad campaign around it. Even though I've given all of these different categories that you need to be thinking about, there is a way to make it go through all of these areas. Webinars have been a tremendous tool. We have implemented this in a big way, having conversations with franchisees, inviting the cold leads to passively come sit on it or have conversations with the franchisor. Webinars have been a great tool to now re-engage. It's almost some of the lead nurturing. And again, you film a webinar, you write a piece of content, you take that content and you put it across all of your other channels. It's another opportunity to tell the story of why you want to buy this franchise and why you want to buy it now. Setting the right expectations. I've talked about this a bit. I think this is the difference between winning and losing in franchising. If the franchisee's expectations are set properly, they will continue to validate. You're giving them the right support. You're doing everything that you said you were going to do in the sales process. Now you're going to help them scale and build wealth for their family. Those that come in sell too high end up creating an issue because if the performance of that franchisee doesn't align to the item 19, sometimes that frustration and the expectations can have impact on what happens next. How to leverage franchisees for validation? You should be. I'll give one just statement here, which actually leads to how to create a strong incentive. It fascinates me how much money we're willing to pay the franchise brokers to help us go get a franchisee, yet we're not willing to give our franchisees who are going to make us more money on royalty incentives to help us. They give like $2,500. I would like to see the referral be exactly the same that you're going to pay to a broker, because frankly, if you're a friend of mine and I tell you that it's time to buy, you're going to be more qualified. And so I like to look at an incentive to incentivize my franchisees and it could be in a marketing credit. It doesn't have to be pure and direct into just new blood acquisition. So get the right expectations, leverage your franchisees and create a strong incentive so that you're incentivizing. You could give them the money and back into marketing, which will ultimately impact your bottom line as well. Franchise expos, I would call them a crapshoot today. If you're selling franchises, can it be in the mix? Yeah, but only if you're well capitalized. It's a lot of time and energy and money, and you're competing against a lot of brands, and sometimes you can get in front of someone. I like it as a part of the Drumbeat, especially in markets that you're trying to expand to. If there's an expo there, other than that, it's risky. I'd rather spend the $20,000 on digital marketing. I think it gives us a better shot at building franchisees. Set realistic expectations when it comes to your sales. Again, I said this at the beginning. I've seen CEOs go, I'd say, how many units do you want next year? And they say, I want 25. I said, how many did you do last year? And they say, we did 10. I said, so you're going to go 2.5 times budget to get there? Well, no, same budget. What that does is it discourages your franchise sales team because you're putting a false expectation on what their performance will be. And that burns them out. And ultimately, you need your sales team being huge advocates for what you're trying to accomplish. They're on the front lines. They're talking to people. Set them up to win. It's very important. Budget properly. We've talked about the deal value. Back of the napkin number is $25,000 per deal right now. That number has climbed from 10 over the last few years. But make sure you budget properly. I would still think you start small in the way that you deploy budget. But eventually you're going to want to build up that snowball effect and make sure that you're maximizing your spend. Now, a lot of digital channels today are pay-per-click. The trade magazines, if you know who the persona is, getting in front of them can be interesting. And there's other personas that you can align your models to. And then leverage the signing of your franchisee. Every time you sign, connect the silos. Make that noise be known. Your website, in-store, email databases, customers, social, PR, content, LinkedIn. Make sure that when you sign, you celebrate it, scream it from the rooftops, because that's a big deal that someone has said, yes, I'm willing to invest my life savings into your business. And so those are the categories. And so now if I try simplifying this for you, again, if you've watched this video up to this point, appreciate you clicking subscribe so you can see more of these, or go ahead and Google the list that exists on our website. But if you've gotten to this point, here's the breakdown. Foundational elements, you need your website, good. You need a campaign, even if it's just a few emails that happens after a lead comes in, so that not only you can get them into the call, but you can nurture them and create some sort of sense of urgency. I like the 90 days to close piece. It gives a piece of content that could really drive that user all the way through. So foundation element, websites, lead nurturing. Then you need the drumbeat that creates the noise to drive traffic in. You're going to need the retargeting. That's going to be critical, and that should drive back to a call to action. That is something further down the funnel, a tool that the franchise buyer can use. Understand your data, look at the traffic into leads, applications, and deals. Stop chasing leads, chase applications and deals. That's where you're going to have the highest impact. Have the deal discussion, deal value discussion with your leadership team, even over a beer, and say, let's understand what this economic impact or enterprise value of a deal is to our system, so that when you're budgeting properly, you can have that and take that into account. Understand that franchising is a complete different business than the consumer core. It's almost like you have two different businesses going, and so you have to capitalize it properly, and it's going to be uncomfortable. There's nothing in franchising that is guaranteed. The broker network is as close to as guaranteed as possible. You're going to pay a heavy commission for those deals. I still don't know what the value of a candidate that was sold in versus someone that sold themselves or said this is the brand. So I would be cautious on that. Maybe have a little bit of transparency with the candidate if you choose to go the broker network. I would entertain putting that in the mix, unless you're a food brand. The brokers have not done a great job at food brands because they don't move as fast, and typically you have to be a tremendous fan of that brand to buy it. And then be willing to pivot. It takes 6.4 months for a lead to go from impression to inquiry. Watch those insights and indicators. And if something's not working, if candidates are falling off, adjust the system, change your expectations. Again, don't look at the lead numbers. Leads are bullshit. Focus on applications and deals and say, let's get more of the right people into our funnel so that we can actually close deals. And so this gives you the guide to selling franchises. My ultimate recommendation, if you watch this back, just take some notes. You don't have to get everything done at once. Just make the progress, especially if you want to award more franchises that scale. A franchisee that opens and grows has tremendous value back to your organization. Take credit for that. Make sure your leadership team understands the value of new blood coming in. And eventually, because you get this energy going, the machine is going to drive more candidates in so that you can continue to grow your brand up into the point that you exit it. Thank you for watching. This is the ultimate guide to selling franchises.